Yeah, so the company has a very strong policy on security. So we first validate the caller. We don't just accept a call at face value, even if we recognize the number. Because we also respect that some clients, only certain people have privileged access to information and not everyone in the business. So when we first engage with the client and we set up our partnership with the client, we make sure that those security policies are in place and how we manage it. From a appropriate point of view, so all our information that is recorded is on secure network. It's not open to, we have a lot of clients that listen, can I have my cameras fitted to normal internet GSM? We don't know. So we have a very secure network which runs through a 256-bit encryption. And the data is stored on a 256-bit encryption service as well. So no one gets access to our data. And to the degree that not even our agents, when they retrieve footage on behalf of a client, is stored locally. So we're aware that the appropriate information is valuable. So we've got security measures in place, policies in place, which limit access to the information to the client itself. And we adhere to the security policies of Ultron to ensure that that is fulfilled and that mandate is managed. We work on a handover system. So firstly is when shift change happens, not everyone vacates a desk at the same time, because then it's very easy for things to slip through the cracks. So our operators will change shifts at a staggered approach, and if there's anything active at the moment, those are handed over to the new operator. So we don't just say, there you go, here's your desk, all things good and even. We actually manage the shifts on a proper handover, so each agent has to do a full handover to the new operator, and any escalations are handed over to the shift leaders, and they also do handover escalation processes to each other, as well as should that be with any of the connecting departments. Let's say we've got active cases in our live cases response team, that information is also handed over. So, and on a normal day, when I get a report in the morning, I can see multiple operators have been touching this case and how they've been managing it and what the actions have been. So, on a normal day, that would be around early hours in the morning when we do our shift change, and all handovers are done so that from a client point of view, they don't see a difference. They don't feel a difference. If they speak to the operator, they'll just realize that their voice has changed. But all information stays the same, and that information and whatever is currently active at the moment is managed through the protocols and the scope that has been designed for that client.
So if we think about this typical day further and we look at it from, we obviously the Fleet Bureau has a whole bunch of screens that are tracking information. You have access to real-time information. What are some of the data points that the operators are looking at on a daily basis to almost paint this bigger picture of what's going on across the geographies you serve?
So we call them critical events. So we can detect basic patterns that are happening on a normal day. We can detect different types of risk factors that are happening. So a good example is if we suddenly have a lot of fog, we will see different types of events with regards to driver behavior. And we monitor different types of events. So we monitor telematic events. So those are triggered events which are detected through driver behavior through the telematic device themselves. And we also monitor through the video events as well. So we can see if there's suddenly an excessive amount of distraction, or fatigue is climbing in, or we're getting a lot of phone calls, or following distance is decreased. Then through those events, we can also suddenly pick up, when I say suddenly, we can suddenly see a behavior change in a certain environment. We can see we can investigate what's happening around there. Interesting enough, most of the time the following distances decrease, not because of lack of visibility, but because of too much visibility. So we will see that often, and we call it driver frustration. So we can often detect from all the amount of data getting there, and we get a plethora of information on a daily basis. But from there, we can start seeing different types of driver behavior. So what we suddenly see a ramp up on mobile phone usage. That's normally an indicator that something's going on in that area. People they're calling into the control room saying, listen, we're picking up unrest here, or there's felt fires, and we can pick that up through the cameras as well. So if we see a sudden increase of a certain type of event, it's a very key indicator. And then the agents would then get in the shift leaders involved and say, look, we're picking up a pattern. Should we send out a notification?
How does Netstar play a role in some of these really these atypical incidents that happen, where they're black swan events? We never expected this. This amount of snowfall, this amount of rain, this flash flooding, etc. How do we manage those kind of things?
Again, so when we're aware of these environments and we're monitoring a lot of different communication networks, we also use our own communication networks, whether it be X, Facebook, on LinkedIn. We will actually send out alerts saying, listen, you need to avoid the following risk areas, because we see them all as risk. That mountain pass one became quite an issue in Cameroon, because a lot of people got caught in the snow. They thought they could navigate through it, and then they were stuck there for 2 days at sub-zero temperatures. So we then have to communicate with the drivers and make sure that they're okay. So it becomes quite a challenging environment. Our biggest challenge is we can only advise. We cannot enforce. We've also got our own traffic server as well, so we actually monitor the traffic congestion, and through that we also detect quite early when we're starting to see problems in different environments. Because we have quite an advanced algorithm, so it'll warn us if that kind of behavior is abnormal to what would normally be expected. And we also integrate that into our information as well, where we can actually warn, and we actually have our own Twitter page as well, where we communicate these kind of alerts through our traffic environment.
How do you interact with other, traffic management apps that are out there, without mentioning all of them? There's obviously quite a few that people use regularly to plan their travels, to avoid, trouble or hotspots, whatever it is. How do you utilize those into your own systems?
Look, our motto is we try to share information freely amongst the different communication entities. So whether it be the SAPs, whether it be fleet trucking environments, or just normal commuters, we try to communicate and also glean information from them, because there's nothing better than someone that's on scene. And then we'll take that information. First we do is, one thing is never do is to treat it as it is. So we don't take it as status quo. We will validate the information, and based on the validity of the information, we will then provide the necessary notifications, whether it's through our platforms, our managed platforms, or if it's through our social media platforms. We'll then communicate that across those platforms as to what the alerts are, where there's risk involved, and also we also provide recommendations on what should be done.
I mean, you have access to a vast amount of information that you process. I mean, I have a stat here that says there's 7 terabytes of streamed data consumed in 2025 alone, and maybe you can confirm that as well. But how do teams prioritize and respond to all these millions of alerts that are generated? Obviously, something takes priority from time to time, and how do you determine that?
Yeah, so I think, just for clarity's sake, 7 terabits of data is all consumption. So that's live streaming, it's download files, it's not just the alerts that come through.
Okay.
But what the infrastructure we've got, actually we enable what we call real-time triggering. So depending on which alerts the clients want us to respond to, we actually set them on real-time triggering. So it actually it opens up a live view real-time to our agent. So it filters out all the unnecessary things. So let's say, for argument's sake, having a passenger is not a requirement that requires us to contact their control room. When that alert triggers, it's not going to open up a live stream for us. So from that point of view, what we do is and it gets busy. You're absolutely right, it gets very busy. Because when sometimes at the first fatigue alarm, the driver doesn't respond. And so we'll possibly be dealing with that driver for 2 to 3 minutes before they take action around their fatigue. But because of the nature of how alarms activate and how it alerts us, it's very difficult to miss alarm because they're coming in real time with the validation. Now, a good example is the driver could be squinting because the sun's in his eyes. We get a fatigue alarm because the camera says, I can't see his eyes. My operator will get it. He gets the alarm and he goes, okay, hold on, the guy's squinting, I can see it. And he will cancel that alarm as being a false positive. But rather we respond to that and we validate then the driver is actually asleep. And it puts you in automatic mode, but it does tend to avoid risk. So we picked up day gazing, and so we're actually busy finalizing, we're doing deep algorithm integration into day gazing. So what we've noticed with day gazing is that the driver's eyes blink slower. So instead of, let's say, 16 blinks a minute, they get reduced to like 3, 4, 5 a minute. So we're actually building algorithms to detect that. So day gazing was probably one of our most alarming. Interesting fact as well is that most of our fatigue was actually between 10 and 2 during the day, not at night. So by integrating things like possible forward collision warnings and following distance, that also helps to break the driver's concentration. We've also noticed there's other things that where the drivers literally their concentration is not on the road, and what we find is that they part of the day gazing is they go into almost like a hibernation mode, where they drive, but they're totally unaware of anything in the environment around them. We've also realized that by engaging with drivers, and that they've started to realize we're not there to check up on them, we're there to help them. And I think that's probably one of the most valuable things of the Bureau is initially when we launched all these products, there was a lot of pushback from the drivers. You know, my privacy's gone, you're checking what I do, I'm not allowed to do this now, this is now causing frustration at the office, etc. But when they actually saw the value come out of it, stopping them and saying, listen, you're pulling over right now, we're phoning your control room, we're advising them, we've instructed you to take a 20-minute nap. And we've seen the impacts of that. We've seen lower impacts on accidents. We've seen better economies of scale around the vehicle's operation. A lot of clients, one of our clients actually saw 30% saving in diesel just by our interaction with his fleet. So, and it's also important, you know, you speak about assisting the drivers. One of the things which we also detected was around epilepsy. We had an unfortunate incident where a passenger put on music which actually triggered a driver's epilepsy. And when we actually communicated to the medical societies, they were actually doing an investigation around the impact of sound to epilepsy. And we could actually, with the permission of the client, provide this as evidence where they found that there was more than just visual triggers that cause epilepsy, but there's also sound involved as well. I think one of the values that we sell to our stakeholders is that we're there to help their business improve both from an economies of scale point of view, but also from a risk and safety point of view. So we've also integrated where we actually do coaching with both with the client themselves, with the stakeholders, and with their staff, where they see the value around it. It's very interesting to understand is that normally the vision doesn't come from the guy behind the steering wheel, the man on the street, but it's coming from somebody that's sitting there in a boardroom that's saying, this is what I want to see. We must also be mindful that there are certain regulations which are now required, and these solutions help them to adopt to those regulations. Now, that's quite easy to sell because it's a regulation. But when it comes to the things of privacy, when it comes to the fact of safety, when we sit and engage with, and we sit with our stakeholders, and with their team, and we share the values around it, and we share examples of what, because of the nature of our business, how it's protected both drivers and it's also protected the stakeholders. It creates a different language. There's a different conversation that's been held. Yes, you still get those that feel that they're obligated to have this equipment in their vehicle because that's what the company has dictated. We have quite a strong network in Australia. There, the speed tolerance is 0. So when that vehicle hits 1 kilometer over the speed zone, it activates. Now here we look and go, oh, it's 1 kilometer. We won't take action. There we need to take action. We've got to also make sure that our equipment is accurate enough that it's measuring the right speed zones. I think where the interesting thing there is that they, in Australia, use dynamic speed zones. So between 6 and 8 in the morning, that speed zone is 80 kilometers an hour, but after 8 in the morning, it increases to 100. So we've had to learn to adapt to different kinds of road dynamics. Also, if we've got a country that's on the other side of the road, that travels on the right-hand side of the road, we've had to learn to adapt to different types of driving behavior because of the different types of road styles. When we go into Africa, for example, speed limit is not the problem, it's road conditions are the problem. So there we have to monitor the types of road. In Nigeria, they will travel down the wrong side of the road, and it's seen as normal. Policemen will actually monitor and say, as long as I can keep the traffic flowing, it's not an offense. So there's a lot of different dynamics which are being embraced in it, and so we've had to learn to adapt to different styles. But the first thing we want to know is what is regulational, and what is risk, and what is statutory.
Can you perhaps talk to us a bit about the Hawker service and how that's protected drivers in high-risk situations?
The Hawker is a brainchild of Netstar, and it really works well in the Global Bureau. So the integration of both telematics and the camera alarm detection system allows us to monitor and to respond to a long period of time. It's a great tool. Let's stick to fatigue, because I think that was one of the first key factors that we utilized. Is when the camera picks up fatigue, it activates on the operator's desk immediately. They can see the driver's status, and they can communicate to the driver through the camera as well, which is amazing. So we keep the safety in place, but because there's now this automatic detection, it's not a post-case detection, we're actually catching events before they happen. To give you an example, when we started the Hawker, we were getting around about 140,000 events a month. We're now sitting in excess of over 700,000 as it's just grown. And we've seen the benefit come out of the clients. So the events, the incidences happening with the vehicles is reduced substantially. And also it's allowed, through the Hawker, it's allowed us to provide intelligence back to our clients, where they can now do driver training, driver counseling, and also be able to look at different types of mechanisms to assist their drivers to ensure that the driver is safe and also the driver is safe. So, it's the simple thing, what the eye does not see, the heart doesn't behold. So when we were able to detect camera usage and the abuse of cameras and the risk it caused and provide this feedback back to the clients, it created a remarkable response to the clients. We first initially thought we're getting no results. Cell phone usage is getting worse. And as we engage with the clients and we assisted them with behavioral usage, and also with giving them the tools to be able to talk to the drivers without them having to utilize their phones. Because texting is the biggest problem on most drivers. It's not actual voice calls. So by integrating this information and providing this evidence to the client, so not only do we provide the client with statistical evidence, we actually provide them with video footage evidence. So our product actually allows them to provide a full report where they can utilize it for counseling or for disciplinary purposes, no matter, depending on how they want to escalate the situation. But by creating that awareness, the drivers were firstly aware that, listen, this discipline is not safe. But also by the client being able to provide solutions to be able to communicate to the driver, which allows them to remain focused on driving, and also to use then to also implement stops. So listen, if you want to have a conversation with your partners or your family or whatever, every 2 hours you can pull over and you can have the full conversation you want, but understand that while you're driving without tools of trade, the phone is not allowed to be used. And my honest opinion, most of it came through counseling, not through discipline, but through counseling.
In terms of fleet owners, typically, how do they quantify return on investment from implementing your solutions?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a statement that always says that we have tracking units as a grudge buy. But when it comes to fleet management, it's not. It's actually a part of a tools of trade to ensure that there's proper fleet management. The initial impact is a very low return on investment. So they look at what they've purchased and they look at what it's costing them and what the outcome is, and they're going, we're not seeing a return of investment. However, as they learn to utilize the solutions we provide and utilize us as part of their solution provider, they start building tools which actually has improved their operational expenses, it's improved their management expenses, and also their shrinkage on their fleet management. So the return on investment, we normally work on a year-on-year. Short term, you're going to see very little because there's a behavioral change as well. And the behavioral change is not just on the drivers, on the business as well. So the business sometimes could be in a very bad behavioral management process, and through the exposure of that type of management, we actually assist them in providing better quality of service on the fleet.
How does the work of the Fleet Bureau contribute to broader road safety? For the broader public, beyond just your clients?
By having eyes on the vehicle, both from a telematic and a visual point of view, we can identify the behaviors of these commercial vehicles. Let's face it, commercial vehicles actually are safe vehicles, but it depends on the operator. It depends on who's driving, how they're driving. So by us being able to assist in engaging on safe driving behavior skills, it makes the road safer. Not just the client's tools of trade, but the road becomes safer. I've noticed personally that most of the vehicles have now actually, when I pass them on the road, they're actually more compliant. Their following distances are better, their speeds are more controlled, and almost to a degree that even where they're pulling over is more controlled as well. This past Easter holiday season, we worked with a partner and in conjunction with the SAPs, we had a 0 incident on this client's fleet base. He's got 1,500 buses, and they actually came back with full praise and saying, listen, what an amazing project. Because of the inputs that we were able to provide, with the value we were able to provide, and when there were any concerns, we were able to resolve it within minutes of escalation. They actually came back and said it was the most positive Easter weekend that they've had in many, many years.
If you look at crime in general in South Africa, how do you think you're just at a high level helping to reduce incidents of crime in South Africa?
I'd love to say we're reducing. What we are doing is we are identifying different behaviors, and we are becoming more proactive and reactive in crime. So because of the behaviors, we're actually seeing it. The interesting thing is what we're seeing now is crime doesn't just normally involve one vehicle or one party of individuals, but there's a syndicate involved. And through our assistance and our communications throughout our networks, we're actually being able to identify patterns, syndicates, and also we've been able to close down a few different knock shops as well as syndicates because of the proactive investigations around crime. So the problem is, in most times we respond to recover a vehicle. We recover the vehicle, client's happy, we're happy, we recovered the client's vehicle, but it doesn't stop the syndicate. So by being able to provide more insight around how these situations are happening, and also what we see is different types of patterns. So last year the pattern was what we call garden hijacking. So they'd wait till the driver entered their premises and then they'd be hijacked. This year it wasn't garden hijacking, now it was rolling stock hijackings. So, just those are just one simple examples, but if it wasn't for our data, it wasn't for us being able to do real-time monitoring and deep dive into these kind of environments and what happened, and be able to provide often visual footage around that, we wouldn't be able to identify the cause and how the behaviors were changing. Because we don't just deal with fleet trucks on the road, we deal with mining vehicles as well. One of our clients, their vehicle goes underground for 9 months and we don't see it again. So, but our vision is that we will actually own full fleet management for our clients to improve their operational costs as well as their productivity costs. We are seeing a fully holistic integrated solution where we can take any product, whether it is provided by us or provided by a third party, and be able to integrate that into full fleet management to provide a holistic support for our clients, no matter the product and no matter the location.